Marin here from indiebirth with a seriously super short video about the Doppler. Only because we've been focusing on some tools this past week and that is coming to a close. So we got a couple of questions and I thought, why not talk about this tool in a very practical way and hopefully address some questions. So this is a fetal Doppler and it is used to hear the fetal heart rate. First question, what's the earliest that we can hear with this particular fetal Doppler? 9 to 10 weeks is my answer, and even 9 may be a little bit tricky, but with some skill and knowing what you're looking for, usually it's not a problem. Other questions. Risk of exposure is something that comes up a lot, and I feel like definitely is at the top of the conversation list around a Doppler. It has not been proven safe, and that is very transparent, I think. We don't really know the effect that it might have on a developing baby, and so like with any of our tools and technology, no matter which end of the spectrum they fall on, really it comes back to the information we do have, our intuitive choice, our preferences, probably our history and our past, and what we hope to gain going forward. I think those are some good basic questions to ask yourself with the use of really any kind of tool, no matter how natural you may feel it is. Even something like herbs, we're always kind of weighing the benefits and risks. And again, I think always using our own internal compass and our internal voice. There are people that are just like 5,000% opposed to Doppler use at all. And I think that kind of dogma really isn't helpful. Again, acknowledging that there may be risks, but also acknowledging that women are smart and that you out there, if you're pregnant, you're the one that can determine that for you. So, over the decade I've been practicing, I don't use it a whole lot, honestly, not a whole lot at all, but I don't feel like it's ultimately my choice. If I'm the midwife, I'm not the one telling someone we need to use it or not use it. It's usually something that's a discussion. And if someone's early pregnant, 9 or 10 weeks, they may choose to hear the fetal heart rate with this device. I always have the conversation that there are other signs of well-being, there are other signs of good growth, and just waiting. Plain old just waiting until the uterus grows bigger and the baby grows bigger and we can hear with a fetoscope, which is my video from the other day. So it's not a one size fits all. I don't think this thing is evil. I also don't think, we can't live without it. I think it can serve some purposes, certainly can give some women peace of mind in their pregnancies. If they're bleeding, for example, hearing a fetal heart rate with this when there's no other option to hear other than going into the ER for an ultrasound can be really reassuring. So I think we just need to have conversations around how these things work. And then when we're in a situation ourselves, we really just have to try to choose the best we can for us and not label things ultimately good or bad, right? Because everybody is coming from a different place in a different situation. So I don't really have the bias of this particular tool being bad or good. I know it can be useful for some and totally not anything that some people want at all. So I respect both sides of the coin. I do want to say though that in the advent of these kind of tools becoming more readily available just to people out there in the world, which on one hand I think is great. Like I think we should all have access to whatever tools we may deem necessary in our pregnancy. The other side of that is these things are probably becoming way overused by people that perhaps don't understand that there may be risks, or I guess I imagine, and I could be totally off with this, but people that are receiving more medicalized care, feeling comforted by being able to listen in the comfort of their own home because that's what their doctor does. And, worry in pregnancy is a thing. Like, it's not the thing for this video, but in other words, hearing your baby's heart rate can be really reassuring. And so I totally get that. So this can be that kind of tool for some at some moments, but the excessive use does concern me as well. And I would always, advise people to choose from a place of trust and not fear if possible. I've certainly used this in my own pregnancies here and there, and not in all of them. So it really depended on the situation. The other thing is just kind of hanging out in your pregnancy and waiting and connecting in different ways. And then eventually learning to use a fetoscope, because that actually takes skill by the midwife or by the woman. It does take skill. It is something that you must learn. There is a learning curve. You do increase your skill as time goes on, and it's well worth it as you become more pregnant. So, with a fetoscope, though, you're not really going to hear until, on average 18 weeks. So again, this would be for before that, most likely. Also in labor, this is sometimes a useful tool, and many moms feel that way just because, you're feeling like you're not wanting to be poked and prodded in labor. And if you're wanting to hear a fetal heart rate in labor, this is usually like the quickest and easiest way to do that. And of course, that's a huge conversation in and of itself that I'm not having today, but just simply about the tool. Is it essential that a midwife be trained in using one? Well, there are many midwives that probably would say no, but it's not hard. Like, that's why people are just buying them off of who knows where, eBay, right? And using them, because it's actually a pretty easy thing to use. 9 weeks of pregnancy takes more skill. You have to know where to listen and perhaps how to manipulate this device so that you get a fetal heart rate, if there is one to be had, in the quickest, most easiest manner. Because I think we would all agree that the more exposure with something like this, just like with ultrasound, is not beneficial and probably more risky than less exposure. But should it be mandatory? No, nothing should be mandatory in midwifery. Each midwife should choose for herself the tools that she thinks are useful to her with the women that she works with. But I'm not an all or never person. I never have been, and I don't think I ever will be. So do I use it a lot? No. Do I think I want to throw it out the window and never have one? No, neither of those seems reasonable to me. Again, I've worked with many women that wanted to use this at one time or another. And I think with an informed choice discussion, they understand the risks as we know them, and they assess their own risks and their own benefits, which we can't do for each other. Sorry, we can't. So each woman must assess that for herself. Then this is her choice, even if it's just for a couple of seconds. Like I said, many women have the conversation with me and their partner and whoever, and they think they want to use this. And then after a discussion, they learn that they don't need to, they don't want to. They can wait a little while to not use this because it is a tool. I think it can be used in a sacred manner, just like any tool. But we're not saying that every choice is without some kind of consequence. So, like I said, I'm not an all or never person. I've heard of and know midwives, I'm sure, that, would never even spend the money to have a Doppler. But that's not me, and it has been useful in the times that it's been requested and honored in that way. And so I'm glad I have it. So that's all I have to say about the Doppler. Pretty quick video. If you have other questions, you can always email us at marin@indiebirth.org or margo@indiebirth.org, or send us a message here on Instagram. But I hope you're having a wonderful Sunday, and I'll see you soon.